What is up, Mythguardians? Leap Daniel here, doing card reviews. The very first card I want to talk about on this channel is Pentacle of Flavors. I think it's a really good card to start us off with because it allows us to cover a bunch of different keywords while also getting pretty deep into some strategy ideas. It's a rare card, which means you can only run 2 copies of it. It costs 4 mana and 2 purple gems. So you'll usually need a bit more than a splash of purple to pull this off consistently. So if we look at the card text, we see that it has give a minion armor 1, focused 2, Regan 3, Slayer 4, and Blast 5. Okay, if you're new to the game, that's probably a lot to take in. So let's go step by step and explain each keyword here. To start off with, we have Armor 1. Armor prevents a certain amount of damage every time your minion would be damaged. So if your minion has Armor 1 and it would take 1 damage, it doesn't take any. If it would take, say, 3 damage, it only takes 2. You can think of it as the armor blocking 1 damage. That's a nice little protection for your minion there, and as we'll see once we get into the other benefits of this card, your opponent is really going to want to remove whatever minion you target with this, so it will need all the protection it can get. Next is Focused. Focused adds a certain amount of combat damage whenever you are attacking the center lane, or when an opposing minion in the center lane attacks you. So in this case, since you have Focused 2, you'll deal 2 extra damage when attacking straight forward or being attacked by a minion directly in front of you. Note that this will not let you deal damage with 0 attack minions. I've tried playing Pentacle on minions with 0 attack or minions that have been reduced to 0 attack by blight cards, and it doesn't work. Maybe Rhino Games will patch that, or maybe that's what they intended, I'm not sure. Just something to look out for when you're playing this card. I would say Focus 2 is probably the least useful buff on this card, but it's a nice little bonus and it can be useful here and there. Regan 3. Here's where we start to get some of the more broken stuff. Regan heals your minion at the end of your turn, after all your other end of turn effects. So Pentacle of Flavors heals your minion for 3 damage at the end of your turn. That's some pretty insane heal there. That usually means that your opponent has to get rid of that minion in one go to prevent it from recovering from any damage dealt to it. Combine that with the Armor 1, and you've got a pretty sticky minion. Okay, Slayer 4. Slayer deals extra combat damage both when attacking a minion and defending against a minion, but not when attacking the enemy player. Not much to explain there, but note the number. This card has Slayer 4. That's more Slayer than any other card in the game. So even if you put this on a minion with relatively low attack, it will become a heavy hitter with Pentacle of Flavors. You do have to be careful that that attack doesn't drop to 0 though. Just like with Focused, if you are attacking with 0 attack, Slayer doesn't activate. It only works when you are already dealing combat damage to another minion. Okay, last but definitely not least, Blast 5. This is the most important keyword of all on this card. Blast does damage to the zones neighboring the target you've attacked. So when you attack with Pentacle of Flavors equipped, you'll deal 5 damage to the left and right of your target lane. That's insane! 5 damage! Just like with Slayer, this card has more blast than any other card in the game. Left unchecked, Pentacle of Flavors will allow you to accumulate lots of board advantage without your minion taking damage, and that is largely due to the blast effect. Also, unlike the Focused and Slayer effects, blast still works even when your minion has 0 attack. So let's talk about good targets. Now, with Pentacle of Flavors, its usefulness largely depends on what minion you attach it to. So let's talk about what the ideal targets for this card would be. The first thing you want is a minion with a lot of health. If you can get it on a huge tank, it's really hard to get rid of when it has armor and Regan. Putting Pentacle of Flavors on a tank will all but require your opponent to use hard removal cards to get rid of it. Even better if it has Warded, which is a keyword which prevents destruction effects and damage outside of combat, though notably it does not prevent blight. The keyword that is probably most useful, though, on a Pentacle of Flavors target is agile. Agile allows you to attack whatever lane you want. Okay, you can ignore blocking minions, you can ignore lurker, you can ignore defender. Let me get the agile minions up here. It's totally up to you what lane to attack. The benefit of this is that even if your opponent blocks with a minion that's too strong for you to combat with directly, you can just attack an empty lane next to it and incinerate it with your powerful Blast 5 effect. Like, it's so good that every time you see the word agile on a card, I want you to think, would this go in a deck with Pentacle of Flavors? Maybe the answer is no, but you should at least consider it if you're in a brainstorming creative mode when building decks. So, for example, some really good targets for this would be Cloudscale Drake, okay, Duskwing Angel right here, or Shinobi of Fire within the purple group itself. All of which have sizable health and also agile. So now, it might sound like Pentacle of Flavors is a really broken card from what I'm saying right now. But it's not as broken as it sounds. It's good, but I wouldn't say it's overpowered. First of all, it's rare, so you can only run 2 copies. So building a deck around it isn't that consistent. You can't just chuck a bunch of agile minions together and expect it to draw a Pentacle every time. At the very least, there have to be some other synergies there. Also, this card suffers from the same problem a lot of buff spells suffer from, putting all your eggs in one basket. If you have no minion to buff, this card is useless. And if you do have a minion to buff, and your opponent removes it, then it's sort of like your opponent actually removed 2 cards, the minion and the buff spell. So effectively, you're clumping your cards together to make it easier for your opponent to get the advantage on you. It's still a good card in my opinion, but not as great as it seems from just its broken effects. So now that we've looked in detail at the pros and cons of the card, I'll give it a rating. I don't really have any data to look at on card win rates, so I'll just go based on personal experience. I would give Pentacle of Flavors 3 stars out of 5. It's not a staple. Some people will build decks around it, but I don't think they will be top tier decks. It can certainly be a clutch card though, and can win you a few games. Down in the description I have a link to a sample deck list. It's not my deck, it's a deck by Dunusor. That's their username. It's a yellow-purple deck that runs plenty of 3-mana agile minions, so you can play your Pentacle Flavors on curve with maximum effect. If you're interested in seeing the full potential of this card, I recommend you try the deck out. All that being said, I hope you enjoyed this card review. If you liked the video, give it a like. I'm told it helps me out with the algorithm. Let me know what card I should review next, and if you're interested in seeing more Mythgard content, go ahead and click that subscribe button. Thanks for watching.